square in there.
Yes.
Unbeknownst to us at the time it was done, but
I looked at it as a great opportunity for trees, actually.
yes, well, we have ideas but as usual, funding. So if Rotary could be convinced to support us in paying for some trees and plants, we would be greatly appreciative of that.
Well, I
And I
cannot
don't mean to-
promise the funding, but I can absolutely promise to you that I will speak to the board and the president, and I will do everything possible to see that they listen to Trees for Watertown. And it would also be great if maybe you or someone on the board could come and speak and
I'd
be a
be
guest
happy
of
to.
mine to a luncheon at the Oak Grove
And,
afternoon.
and like you, I've lived in the town all
I know
my
you-
life, and it's been a long time for me also.
Yes,
So,
it has.
Okay,
And you have a great front yard on your property, too.
thank you very much.
You're welcome.
thank you, thank you. Others, come on up and grab the mic, you can queue up 2 or 3 deep. Yes, Sue, you are.
My name is Leslie Horst. I live on Hall Avenue. I want the panelists, each from their own perspective, to comment on what happens when trees are not so fabulous. For one example, Norway maples. We recently, after spending about 6 years agonizing over the notion of cutting down any tree whatsoever, took down a mature and rather attractive Norway maple in our backyard because it was clobbering the rest of the yard in a variety of ways. That's one kind of question, invasive trees. Trees that are perhaps ill-advised for their purpose. There's something that's a street tree, a city tree in front of our house that sheds something obnoxious all year round. It's the anti-gift that keeps on giving. I don't know what it is, and it's not unattractive. But what's the thinking on what's best to use for street trees now? And then there's the whole planting trees under utility wires, an ongoing issue. Comments from any of the perspectives on any of those questions?
Because that is at least 3 seminars. Let me just, don't answer all of them, pick one, you've
Well,
got something
one
to
thing
say
I
on.
can tell you right off the bat is that all trees have feet of clay, by which I mean, the perfect tree does not exist, and cleaning up after trees is part of the price we pay. The thing is the focus on planting. The reality is there's a huge amount of maintenance associated with a tree, and the ice storms that we have, the breakage, and thank God that the town has, organic matter cleanup days, yard waste days, because there's some talk about maybe cutting those back a little bit, but,
The Watertown Free Public Library will close in 30 minutes. Please judge your time accordingly and check your items out at the circulation department. Print any items you have in the queue and return all laptops. Thank you.
So, I think that is, there is a price to be paid, and, there's the maintenance issue. And that, comes back to the town, because the town, because there are going to be more trees, there's going to be more maintenance. And, everybody don't have an infinitely sized compost pile to put it all in. So, anybody else want to add anything? The invasive issue is complicated, let's put it that way.
But there's this really good book.
Yeah, there is a good book on that subject.
That is on our list, and it has the author here, so grab him afterwards. It's book length complicated. Other observations on those challenges?
Can I ask a question? Peter, is it true that the Arnold Arboretum does not have Norway maples, does not plant Norway maples?
No, that's not true. We actually have a collection of Norway maples. No, we're like a library. And, like a library, I don't believe in burning books, and I don't believe, we are a complete compendium of trees. And if you want to actually study about a tree, once you remove it, you can't actually study it. Right. So the idea we're just going to purge the environment of all these things and, make the world a better place, it's just, the world is what it is. And we have to sort of deal with that. So we actually do have Norway maples. We're not planting a lot of new Norway maples, let's put it that way.
Thank you.
But we're not removing all of our old ones. Mount Auburn Cemetery, however, is actually removing a lot of their Norway maples. They take a different approach, but they're not a research organization, the way the Arboretum is.
Other questions or comments?
I'm Kathy Button, and I'm a librarian at Brandeis University. And before coming here, I wanted to find out what is the value of a tree in monetary values. And so I found this document, Protecting Urban Forest Infrastructure During Construction. So this is for New York City. And they value their canopy cover at $5.2 billion. So, you know, that's a big hunk of change. And they say our trees capture $779,000 worth of carbon annually. So most of all, I want to find out, like, what does an individual tree, what's the value of it? And so they're doing, valuing a tree on the basal area. So if you cut down a tree that has, I guess, like an 8-inch diameter, then they figure, like, you know, how many replacement trees would that be? And they figure, like, okay, how many do they have here? 6, I guess it is. And at $1,550 a tree, that would be $9,300. So, you know, that's what a tree is worth, you know, like an 8-inch tree. Then I have another comment, and I'm thinking about what Mari was talking about, trees and walking and all that. Rural Maine has lots of trees. I love going there, but there are no sidewalks. So in this town where we have a summer place, first, you know, there are no sidewalks and there are no walkable destinations. And here is a place where there's a lot of obesity. So we need everything. We, you know, not just trees. We need sidewalks. We need walkable destinations, and, you know, good food. So.
Well, there is a project in Maine through the Maine Huts and Trails system where they're currently developing a hut and trail system. They have 30 miles of trails and 3 huts that are currently in existence, and their goal is to build, I think the final project will have 180 miles of trails and I think a dozen or more huts. So they're creating a recreational opportunity for people to be able to hike and ski, and I believe you can actually use mountain bikes in that region as well. But it's a tremendous opportunity to be able to take, you know, untapped land, but still preserve the resource in a way that's going to be meaningful for people. So there is work that is being done in Maine along those lines.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
Yes.
Yes.
Libby Shaw has been living only a very short 31 years on Templeton Parkway. I'd like to talk about, it's a wonderful thought to be working with, developing relationships with the DCR and working on parks. What I'd like to focus on is bringing more trees into our neighborhoods. Our neighborhoods used to have many more trees. When I moved into Watertown, my street had a beautiful, graceful canopy with dappled shade going across the street, and now there's maybe 1 or 2 trees left. It's really tough to do something about it. As Peter says, when you've got a really narrow so-called planting strip, and that's all you're giving a tree, that's really not much room for a healthy tree to spread its roots and grow over the period of, say, 30 years that it really takes a tree to grow to a height and size where it's going to really serve the community. So one thing I'd love for this town to be thinking about, and all of us to be thinking about, is how you can expand that territory in creative ways. One of the very significant things you can do is have a permeable sidewalk and have something called structural soil under the sidewalk. This is soil that tree roots can grow through instead of on top of, so that as the tree grows, the roots don't lift up the sidewalk and cause problems for pedestrians. Trees under those conditions will have much more root space. They can pass from the so-called planting strip under the sidewalk into all that soil in front of people's houses. Now, people, of course, may have different opinions about whether they want that, but if they love trees, which I think most people really do, if you want people to go out and start walking, if they go out the front door and there's shade there on their street already, then they're much more likely to do that. So it's good for fitness. There is a solution if the town is willing to take that technological leap. And I just want to mention that.
Any comments on that?
Well, I would say, Libby, I completely agree with you, and I think that it's not just the issue of structural soils, but, you know, I mentioned this curb issue, and that is, you know, if you, the curb does two things. One is it protects the tree, it keeps the soil in place so that the soil doesn't all wash out. And the other thing that it does is it keeps the cars from parking on the sidewalk, you know, which is what is, I see the really alarming trend that's happening all over Watertown, and that the, you know, if you don't, that distinction between where the pedestrian and the tree belongs and where the car belongs is blurred. And I think that, you know, getting the curbs back and getting a policy that says curbs are important is really a critical first step to retreeing the neighborhoods like you're talking about. And the town, it's gonna take a while, it's expensive, but I think that that's the only way it's gonna really happen. And I don't know, Susan, if you would agree with that, or, you know, what your feeling is. I mean, you've done a lot of work on this subject.
The policy now is that any street that is being reconstructed gets a granite curb. Any street that's just getting what's called a mill and overlay gets an asphalt berm, which is a step in the right direction.
It's definitely a step in the right direction, absolutely.
But it's gonna take a long time to get all around town and put them every place. But we're working on that. As far as the what Libby was suggesting, I would say that's something to put on your agenda next time Trees meets with Chris Hayward, and get his support for that, and then he can work with getting the support of the Public Works Department for making that change.
Okay, I might have like one or two more questions.
Come on, you'll beat the board.
No, we can cut deals on the side. Yes, please.
I'm Susan Claude, married to Peter. You know, I agree with Elizabeth that I think we have some beautiful parks in Watertown, and we have a lot of very nice trees in those parks, but the number of streets, and when I think about where we are in the corner of Irving and Riverside, and Irving Street going down between Mount Auburn and the river has hardly any trees. And I'm always shocked at this, that people don't plant trees in their front lawn. They want this huge open, you know, people have space in front of their houses, you know, they don't plant trees. And I had this vision as we were talking about what could Trees for Watertown do, or what, I'd love to see like a year-long campaign through WCS in the town and Trees for Watertown of like, plant a tree this year, where, you know, you're trying to encourage everyone in town to plant one tree, you know. And I agree with Elizabeth. I think people are very worried about their home, you know, their house values have gone down. I think let's do it economically. If they haven't, you know, let's show them your property would be worth more money, and your property would be worth more money if you plant something and if your neighbor plants something. And then try to get a mechanism. I think that a lot of people, you know, I'm married to somebody who thinks nothing of planting a tree, of moving a tree. I mean, to him it's like second nature, but a lot of people just don't know what to do. You know, they say, yeah, maybe it'd be nice to have it, sure, I could put a tree here, but they don't know how to plant it, they don't have a shovel, they don't have organic matter. So somebody, at one point, I think Trees for Watertown actually, in the 80s, I think they would go and like, if you wanted a tree in your like lawn, because there was no place on the curb, they would come and plant a tree for you. So I think we could do something like that, and that Trees for Watertown, we could do this education. The Watertown Community Foundation is having a town-wide block party some weekend in June. It's going to be for the whole town, and that would be a great place for education. I think this may be a slightly shortened version of that article, What's a Tree Worth? You know, like the bullet points out of it, because it's long to read. You know, Trees for Watertown I could hand out to people, but I just think it could be like a campaign one year, and if the whole town worked together on it, maybe we could get a lot more street trees planted, which I think would raise everybody's real estate values and make it much pleasanter to live on some of our streets.
Thank you. Since I'm aware that horrid voice from above is going to start getting at us more and more. Rather than have you guys answer, I'm going to take very short comments from the two others who had their hands up forward. And then I'm going to go down the panel and just give you a last word, which can either ignore these people and say what you wanted to say anyway, or respond to them.
And actually, my comment is
This,
that
you would make me say, so who are you?
okay, Annie Clark, I am the treasurer of Trees for Watertown. And anyway, so my comment is that one of the reasons why it is hard to rebuild the canopy in Watertown streets is because of state regulations that have sort of other good intentions, like handicap regulations make the sidewalks wider, and traffic regulations make the streets wider. And so basically, people have big cars that need more space on the streets. And so I think what we have to do is we have to actually start working on the state level to reverse some of those rules and regulations, that we can have basically that those kind of the trees are taken into consideration everywhere. Because I think if you don't need a wide sidewalk, you know, like an avenue, there should be a cutout for a tree. And I think we should be able to build islands into streets to slow down the traffic, to make space for trees. And I think, but in order to achieve that, we most probably have to go back to the state and work against the rules they have put in over time that remove the space that the trees used to have.
Thank you. Ruth, last short word.
And mine is Ruth Tomasian, president of Trees for Watertown. I love this saying, an idea works when you do. So everybody with ideas, it's wonderful to say Trees for Watertown can do this, should do this. We need you helping us. We have a membership, a paid membership of about 50, 60 people. We have about 65. I just got the word, the official word, that's great. We're growing. But we have only about 10 active members. We need active people. We need people who will go to zoning meetings, to town council meetings, to speak up, to advocate for trees, to walk the streets and know which trees are dead, which trees need to come down, where there are planting places. So we need everybody to be involved. And so we welcome your participation and your activities with us. Give us a call, come to a meeting, do your own little thing, but keep us informed. And thank you all for being here with us tonight. Thank you for coming.
We're not done. We're not done.
You're not done,
We're
but
not
thank
done.
you.
So, news flash. Tomasian calls for streetwalkers. Got it. All right. I know there are a bunch of questions we didn't get to. In the last 10 minutes after my panel sums up, there'll be some 3x5 cards sitting with Ani towards the back. You're going to write your question down. We will at least post them along with the conversation we want to get going under the Trees for Watertown website. And we'll make sure that those 10 active members and their friends respond to as many of them as they can. Let me then just ask the panelists to have a closing remark on the order of a sentence or two. What do you take home from this, or what do you want us to take home from this? Ken, just come down the road.
Isn't it funny, when we were asked to do this, we were labeled experts. We're the experts up here. Well, I just can't tell you how much I have learned from this experience. I feel like I brought little expertise, but what I will be able to do is take this kind of conversation back to the Energy Committee. Because as I think about the economic value of solar panels, the economic value of insulation, I literally had no clue before this past week of the immense value of tree planting around a house and how it can be strategic. But once it's done strategically and done well, the economic impact, I just didn't know.
Thank you. Ken?
Far from an expert, I agree with Ken. I did learn a lot here this evening. And I have been given the charge by Mr. Duff, and I accept that charge and will take it. And I'd like to tell everyone here that if anyone would like to speak to me about intermingling this organization with other community organizations in town, please see me after this meeting. I'll be glad to give you my contact information, and we'll work on it.
Thank you. Contact information for everyone who's willing to give it will be up on the website.
I'm filled with gratitude as a resident of Watertown, as a homeowner, and as a taxpayer, that there is such a passionate group of people who care so much about this topic, and that we are so blessed as residents to be the beneficiaries of your work. So thank you. I'm filled with gratitude.
Thank you. Peter?
Well, I just feel like I think the problems are, we all know what the problems are, and I think the solution, I think I liked your slide showing the interconnectedness between all of the parts of the town, and I think that there's an individual, what my wife said, there are all these empty lawns where a tree could go that would have the effect of a street tree, and people are just not doing it. And I think that, it's both a public and a civic responsibility, and I think that communicating that to people is a real challenge, and I think everybody can play a role in that.
Thank you. Louise?
I am interested in the respect of the growing needs of trees out of this spiritual sense of how valuable trees are. So I had a couple of thoughts. It would be nice if if people learned how to correctly prune their trees, and it would be wonderful if somehow we had resources to teach people who do the pruning in their own language how to prune.
Thank you and good night.
And I don't think we should have any volcano mulching in town. That should just be banned. I heard Mr. Duff talk at a zoning board, and he was recommending a tree-lined promenade on Grove Street, and it would be so beautiful to really work on that. I love that idea. And I wonder what resources we have in teenagers. Is there a way to connect their need for work, for meaning, to be helping us with our leaves? And I wonder how to make that connection. That's it.
I just want to thank you all for this opportunity. I learned a lot, and I think people who love trees, I think are really creative, passionate people. So I definitely learned a lot from all the ideas, and I especially like the idea of the tree campaign, the Plant a Tree campaign, and I would love to see that happen with this group. So thank you.
Excellent. Susan?
Two quick comments. One is my last story. There's an old saying, the best time to plant a tree is yesterday. The second best time is today. And I really will work with the insight that I got about the interconnectedness of this issue and how thinking about trees needs to be incorporated into every department in the town, and I'll be thinking about how to make that happen.
So let me close it by, again, thanking Trees for Watertown as an organization for both what it does, but also for making connections like this happening. I had no idea of 2/3 of what we just experienced today. That's clearly a feeling right across the room. So as was said at the beginning, the electronics around here are so that this day will be up on the web shortly on the Trees for Watertown website for people to refer their neighbors to. There's a host of additional information. All the visuals that we had up on the board here will be up on the website within a day or so, along with a whole set of additional resources and supplementary readings for follow-up that we just didn't have space to put up, but they're at the tail end of this presentation once you pull this off the website. So I thank all of you. It's exciting. I trust Libby was taking notes so that we will know all the things when we come back together next year that we said, well, gee, something ought to be done on that soon, right? That's when you plant trees. So thank you all and good night.